Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Stories, tools, and wisdom shared by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence and release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's show. This is the Nonprofit Exchange, and my name is Hugh Ballou. I'm the founder and president of a foundation called Vision. It's the synergy leaders create by being very clear and emphatic with their vision. So we're exploring today some simple yet powerful leadership framework called the Power of Three. Our guest, Stephen Mays, is a leadership strategist, speaker, and author who helps leaders move from intention to impact by focusing on clarity, accountability, and this is the big one for me, influence. Stephen is the creator of the Power of Three Leadership Net Framework, which emphasizes three core dimensions of leadership: foundation, challenge, and achievement. His work supports leaders across nonprofit, corporate, and community settings who want to lead with integrity, courage, and purpose, while inspiring others to perform at their best. Stephen, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, and tell us what inspired you to develop the Power of Three framework.
Well, I wanted to be a leader early on in my life. That's why I chose to go to the Naval Academy, and I was a nuclear submarine qualified officer, and I enjoyed that experience. And after I left my active duty and went into other realms, I found myself in positions of management and leadership, and I found that I was learning mostly by trial and error. And as I came along, I just started to discover, geez, I things that I came across were things that weren't that hard to understand. And maybe if somebody had told me about them ahead of time, I might not have had to make this mistake in order to learn this lesson. So I ended up, after experiencing military, civilian, national, federal service, and consulting business leadership, I noticed there were things that were common about it, and I decided to maybe I would write it down so I could understand it better, make sure I had a clear picture of it. And when I did, I said, why hadn't anybody told me this before? Why didn't I have any training on this before? I could have been much more effective had I had this rather than having to learn it by the College of Hard Knocks. And so that was my motivation for doing this.
Well, leaders trying to make things too complex when really you and I were talking about it doesn't need to be a complex. So talk about the simplicity is the best pathway. And then one question you want to make sure we cover, let's do it right now. How do we prepare people to be leaders if they have this fictitious idea of what it's supposed to be?
Well, that's one of the biggest problems we have is we don't train leaders early enough. We
Hmm.
wait until somebody is really, really good at something, and then we say, oh, now you're the leader. You can't get a degree in leadership from Harvard as a bachelor's degree. You can't get a leadership degree from any major institution in the country uh, in leadership. You can get math, science, English, history, sociology, any other ology you want to add. You can get a bachelor's degree in, but not in leadership. But leadership is absolutely critical to people working together to achieve something, and we don't teach it. We kind of like, well, they'll figure it out as they go along. We may give them a course in personal communications or something like that, but we don't really foundationally tell them what leadership's about. And so that's what I wanted to do when I wrote this book, was make a leadership foundation and a concept that everybody could follow because it fits for whatever particular field of business or association you're doing. So that's what I set to do because I have a math and an engineering training. And so there was always a formula you had to follow someplace. And I said, well, what's the formula? What's the theorem? What's the maxims that you have to follow? And I said, well, why can't we do that for leadership as well as we do for math or chemistry or anything else?
Well, and of course, I have a degree in choral conducting as a musician, a music conductor, and so that's a very related field. And it's also the same thing. There's a pattern, there's a structure, And there's a container like your strategy. We have the music score, so we can be creative because people know what to do. Now, you let the cat out of the bag. Okay, you got a book. Tell us what the book is.
Well, the book is actually very short. I wrote it because I got tired of looking for leadership advice that was always focused on personality and style.
Ooh.
Because everybody goes to the shiny object. They want to talk about the icing on the cake. They want to talk about the icing, not the cake. They want to talk about the sizzle and not the steak. And so I wanted to look for the cake and the steak. So I put together this concept so that it would be something that everybody would be able to have, regardless of the field of endeavor, to be able to use to say, how can I be a better leader today? And how can I work more effectively in my field? And so that was the whole purpose.
So we're going to look at the website, and I'm sure there's a place on the website you can direct us to for your book. But you've got this whole system that you've created, the power of three. So we're talking to people in the nonprofit community, and you and I work with business leaders, we work with entrepreneurs. That it's really difficult to lead in those situations, but there's a quantifiable exponential difference in the difficulty in the nonprofits because you got all these rules the government, and you got these volunteer people to work with. So how does your process work? And it's not just theory, it's practical. How does it help nonprofit leaders?
Well, the biggest thing it has to do is it gives you a foundation and a basis for why you're doing the things you think you need to do. The hard part is not the vision. The hard part is not the idea of what you want to get done. That's actually pretty easy. In any organization at whatever level you're a part of it, the what needs to be done is almost always a given, almost. But how you go about making that happen is what the leader has to do. And basically, leaders are people who influence others to be able to do more together than they could do on their own. In mathematical terms, we used to refer to this as the whole as being greater than the sum of the parts. So you may have a virtuoso violinist and a virtuoso trumpeter and a virtuoso bassist and a cello player and whatever else there are, but none of them are as good alone as they are together. And being able to influence people to work together so that their talents complement each other and add to each other so that they're more together than they are apart is what leadership is all about. And that's true whether you're in an engineering firm or you're in a government firm or you're in a manufacturing firm or if you're in conducting music. It's the same principle. You're getting more out of people individually by getting them together collectively to perform better. And it's influencing them to use their craft to be better than they could ever be all on their own.
So we have to be good to begin with. And actually, in music, we say what they get, orchestra, choir, what we get is what they see. So if they see something confusing, we're going to get confusing results, and that transposes to any setting. So what are some of the inherent misconceptions people have, especially in the nonprofit sector, about leadership? They've defined it wrong, they've inherited wrong systems, and they've been taught wrong. So, what are some of those myths that you have found that people need to overcome?
Well, the biggest myth that I've seen is the idea that leadership is about personality and style. Let me give you three quick examples. Um, did George Patton have the same personality and leadership style as Mahatma Gandhi?
I don't know.
Did Winston Churchill have the same personality and leadership style as Nelson Mandela?
No,
Did Douglas MacArthur have the same leadership style and personality as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
absolutely not.
Now, but all six of those people are great leaders.
Yeah.
So what is it that makes somebody a great leader if it's not personality and style? And so that's what I was trying to do was get rid of the personality and style aspects and make a difference between individual talent and capability and leadership. You'll notice in the paradigm I put together on Power of Three that talent is in there. It's part of the foundation. You have to be good at things or something in order to be effective. You can't take, for example, empathy is supposedly a great thing the leader should have. Well, you know what? The NBA New York Knicks are not going to be NBA champions next year if they get Mother Teresa to be their coach. The most empathetic person on the planet, and they will still not win the NBA championship. Okay? So it's not about your personality. It's not about your individual traits. It's about how you are able to influence others to work together to do something more than they could do by themselves. And so nonprofits is the same issue as it is for an NBA basketball team or for a submarine crew
Uh-huh.
or for a general of an army. Those things are not different. They're the same. And it's a matter of taking your skills and developing your skills and your things in your foundation to enable you to face the challenges that will then let you achieve.
So in your methodology, the foundation is the starting point. So say more about the foundation, what it is, and why it's so critical.
Well, my foundation has three parts in it, and the three parts are honesty, courage, and talent. And I define honesty as the ability to see the world and your place in it the way that it is, not the way you want it to be, not the way you think it should be, not the way it could be if those idiots in charge would just get out of your way. See it the way that it is. Because if you can't see your situation the way that it is, how in the world are you going to figure out how to get to where you want to be? The second part is courage, and I define courage as having three attributes: overcoming fear to take actions to help someone else without regard to the consequences to you. So it takes three things to do that. And then the last part of the foundation is talent. You have to develop a talent in some field of endeavor in order to do it. I could not lead an orchestra. I can love music and I can see a good orchestra and a good conductor at work, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't organize the rehearsals. I couldn't manage the individual skills of the people who are involved. But I know that I would have to have that talent if that's what I wanted to do. So honesty, courage, and talent are the foundations. And I found that catastrophic failures of leadership almost never occur outside of the foundation. Let me ask you this question: Did
Wow.
uh, did uh, did Richard Nixon resign the presidency because he lacked talent?
No.
Did Bill Clinton lose his law license, have to pay millions in fines to for settling lawsuits, and lose the House and the Senate to the Republicans for the first time in 50 years because he was untalented politician?
Nope.
Did David Petraeus, who happened to graduate from the West Point the same day I graduated from the Naval Academy, was the greatest strategic and tactical leader in the Army of our time, did he lose his job at the CIA as CIA director when it got discovered that he was having an affair with his biographer because of a lack of talent? No.
No.
These things all happen for some other reason. And I challenge everybody when I talk to them about it. Think of the biggest failure you've ever had. I don't need to know what it is personally. And ask yourself, did I really have that failure because I lacked talent? Probably not. Probably I wasn't really being honest about the situation, or I didn't have the courage to do the things necessary to help others without really worrying about what it was going to do, how it was going to affect me. Those are the reasons why people fail leadership catastrophically almost every time.
Well, and not accounting for poor judgment sometimes.
Well, that's
So
part of it.
yeah, it is.
That's
So
because here, this is important why the three are together. You have to have exercise honesty so that you can reduce the fear that makes it easier for you to apply your courage to use your talent. That's the way those things work. Honesty makes it possible for you to use your courage to deploy your talent.
So, folks, if you're coming by watching this on Facebook video, this is the Nonprofit Exchange. I have a brilliant guest, Stephen Mays here. He's been around, done it. He speaks from experience. You know, we talk about training leaders, but we also learn from the School of Hard Knocks. So, one of those, I'm an expert in some of these, Stephen, because I'm old enough. I'm older than you are. I'm old enough to have made all the mistakes,
I'm not
and
sure you're older than I am.
I'm almost 80.
Oh, okay. Well, you got me by a few years. I'm
Oh,
73.
okay, but yeah. So now you heard a couple old guys beating their chest. We'll go on. Challenges. This leads me to challenges. This is not autopilot. You learn a lesson out of a book and you go on autopilot. So they're challenges. And so the famous quote is successful leaders learn how to discipline their disappointment. So there's discouragement and there's challenges. And some of those challenges might be this fictitious topic of conflict in the workplace. So what are some of the challenges and how do leaders have built their foundation, how does that help them address these challenges?
Well, I look back over my experience and I came up with different things that were difficulties for me, and I found they all kind of neatly fit into one of three categories. They were either an unmet expectation,
Mhm.
somebody didn't do what I was expecting them to do, or I didn't do what they were expecting me to do. Now, that one's actually 99.9% of the challenges of the issues that you're going to deal with as a leader is missed expectations. And it turns out the role of the leader is really, really important there because when somebody misses an expectation, there's only three reasons why. They either didn't know what the expectation was, so how could they do it? They didn't know how to meet the expectation, or they didn't want to. Now, most people, you'll hear this kind of a conversation. Something goes wrong, and a leader will or somebody will say, "Oh, that Jones guy, can't he ever get anything right? He just doesn't want to do a good job." That's the wanna. That's the place a lot of leaders go to. It's dead wrong when you do that because the how to do the what to do is important. It's what the leader's responsibility is to make sure people know what to do. The next thing it is, you have to make sure they know how to do it. And that is they have the time, the training, the resources, and the facilities to accomplish what you're asking them to do. If you give somebody a 5 pound bag and there's 10 pounds of stuff on the floor, and you say, take my 5 pound bag and get the floor clean. Well, you can't get the floor clean with a 5 pound bag if there's 10 pounds of stuff on the floor. You can choose which 5 pounds you're going to take away, but you can't take away more than 5 pounds of stuff. So that's a leader problem. If you haven't given people the tools and the capabilities and the time and resources to get the what done, you haven't given them the how, that's the leader's responsibility. So the key point here is the leader has to accept responsibility for the what and the how. The wanna is the responsibility of the person who gets the assignment. And most people don't come to work wanting to fail. They really don't. So most of the time you have an unmet expectation, the leader has to recognize it's their responsibility.
And therefore, that's a place where leaders set up the problem to begin with because they weren't clear.
They either
Yeah,
weren't clear about what, or they didn't give the person the capability of how to do it. And if you don't know whether or not somebody can do it, and you're giving them an assignment, you're setting them up to fail. Why would a leader do that? But
yeah.
they do it all the time.
Well, speaking of challenges and conflict, many leaders avoid the challenges and avoid conflict. What kind of impact does that have?
Well, you can't avoid them forever. It's basically um, uh, trying to scoot along before the major failure occurs, so that you're not there when it occurs. You're just dodging bullets. The uh, the biggest thing about conflict is when you have conflict and you get an ethical conflict. That's the other piece. One of the other pieces of the challenge. Everybody gets hurt in a conflict. When you have an ethical conflict, you're going to get hurt. There's a question of how hurt you're going to get because you've got three options. You can fix the problem, and that often is difficult to do. I use the example of the emperor's new clothes from Aesop's fables. Nobody wanted to tell the emperor that the tailors were swindling him and he was naked. But it took a little kid who had no fear to say, the emperor has no clothes on. Okay? So fixing the problem sometimes can be very hard because you have to fight the bureaucracy, you have to fight the power struggle, and you cause other people to get angry and that kind of things happen. The other one is sometimes you say, I can't fix it. I guess I'm just going to have to live with it. That's the accepted phase. And that happens a lot. People sometimes just say, not me. I'm not going to do that. And then the last thing you can do is if you can't fix it and you can't accept it, you just have to say, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. This is not for me. I'm going to not participate. But what most people do, and this is the problem the leader has to deal with, is they don't fix it, they don't accept it, and they don't leave it. So what do? They hang around and bitch about it. And when you do that, you're a cancer to yourself and you're a cancer to the organization. And there's only one cure for cancer: excision. So that's the thing a leader has to do. The leader has to figure out what can they fix, what can they accept, and whether or not they can leave it. The Alcoholics Anonymous used the serenity prayer for this thing, uh, for helping people deal with this kind of struggle. And that is, Lord, grant me the courage to change the things that I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a big deal. A simple prayer, really good message. So, Stephen, people want to find you on the website. Where do they go to find you on what's your URL?
My website is www.powerof3leadership. That's all crammed together in one word, powerof3leadership.com.
Well, if three is a number too, it's not a word.
It's either way will get you there.
Really? Okay. All right. So they get powerof3leadership.com. What will they find when they get there?
Well, the first thing they'll find is a picture of a big cliff with a woman standing at the top of it with her arms raised up, having successfully climbed to the top. And that's the kind of thrill that you get when you're an effective leader. And you'll see the picture of the construct of leadership on that particular front page. And as you click down through it, there'll be explanations of each piece of it. And I have groups of lessons that I put in the book and some that I wrote after I wrote the book that are also available to give examples of each of those particular aspects.
You like triangles. There's a lot of very
Yeah,
vivid
well, when you're doing
examples.
three, that's what you get. You get triangles.
You do, you do. So there's a contact form, so you actually respond to people who want to contact you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is your book on here somewhere?
The book is available through Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any place like that. You can get copies of it.
It's
And
not on the website though.
it's not, well, I think it's on the but if you go down to the bottom of that page, you'll find that it's on Amazon and there it is.
Okay.
Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
The Power of Three, number three, Lessons in Leadership, Stephen Mays. Buy now, paperback, hardcover, now on Kindle. So
Yes, sir.
you can find it anywhere. That's so a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, they can do the how-tos by going there. So the you talk about as we end up this really helpful interview, success is not about us. It's about how we work and we motivate and we influence others. Say a little bit about more about that and how your methodology helps people understand that more.
Well, once you've worked on your foundation and you're become more successful at facing challenges, you get to the top level of that structure, and that is achievement. And in the achievement level, you do three things as a leader. You assist, you inspire, and you depend. So I call it the aid level, AID. The biggest thing a leader does is assist people to be successful. That's your job as a leader. Your job is to make other people successful. And your job is to inspire them so they want to be successful. But the one piece that's most difficult for leaders is the depend section, because this is really, really key. When you're the leader and things go great, you get lots and lots of credit. When you're the leader and things go bad, you tend to get lots of blame. And what you have to understand is that when you're the leader, whether you're directly responsible for the things going successfully or directly responsible for the things not going right, doesn't matter. You're responsible. So you have to accept the fact that when you're going to get credit, you didn't actually earn it all. You had help. And when something goes wrong, you may not have actually done anything wrong yourself. Somebody else may have messed up, but it's still your problem to fix. So if you don't depend on other people, if you go on and try to control every little aspect of the business or the mission that you're trying to accomplish, if you're micromanaging everything, you're handicapping yourself and everybody else. You have to let people do the things that they do well. You have to help them do the things that they do well, and you have to inspire them to do the things that they do well. That's the most critical part of leadership.
That's a good place to end it. That's something people can get their head around. Stephen, this has been a powerful conversation. Thank you for sharing the clarity and practicality of the power of three. For our audience, I encourage you to reflect on your own leadership foundation, how you respond to challenge, and how you define achievement with your team. To learn more about Stephen Mays and the Power of Three leadership framework, visit Power of number three leadership. It's all together. Power of three leadership.com. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our audience today on the Nonprofit Exchange.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Nonprofit Exchange.